SA Cosby, welcome to the Conversation Coffee Break.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right, we're going to talk about your brand new book, King of Ashes. So, do you want to tell the listeners of the Coffee Break about the King of Ashes?
Okay, so basically, King of Ashes is my new book. It is the story of the Carruthers family. Uh, oldest brother Roman, middle sister Neveah, and baby brother Dante. As the book opens, Roman is returning home from living in Atlanta, Georgia, and he gets a call that his father has been in a car accident and he's in a coma, and that he needs to come home to assist with the family business. When he gets home, he finds out that the car accident may not have been an accident because his baby brother Dante owes quite a bit of money to some dangerous criminals who you do not want to owe money to. And so that begins our journey with the Carruthers family, trying to help or follow Roman as he tries to help his brother get out of this debt. Meanwhile, his middle sister Neveah, who has been running the family business with their father, is investigating the disappearance of their mother. When they were teenagers, their mother, Bonita, disappeared and was never seen again. And everybody in their small Virginia town thinks that their father killed her because she was having an affair. And so we journey with them as they try to deal with this criminal aspect with these gangsters, but also trying to deal with the trauma and the mystery of their mother going missing so many years ago.
So, with this book, would you say your writing experience of King of Ashes was different to Blacktop Wasteland and All the Sinners Bleed?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was so funny because I've had people ask me in interviews like, "Your books are so dark, and how do you deal with it? How do you process it?" And most of the time, I'm just like, I write a book, and I kill like 12, 15 people, and then I go play with my cat. I don't let it bother me. But King of Ashes was the first book. I know it doesn't, and I don't know what that says about me as a person, but King of Ashes was the first book that it bothered me. Like, I think it was because in most of my other
Really?
books, whenever there's violence or evil, I know that my main characters, whether they're heroes or anti-heroes, will, see the day. They will be able to get revenge, or the villains will get their comeuppance. In King of Ashes, it's different because the family dynamics and the secrets that this family holds, there's not really a comeuppance. There's not really a vengeance that has to be exacted. It's just dealing with the reality of this family dynamic, of these sibling relationships, and what these secrets mean. And so there was a resolution, but it was a resolution that was tragic. And so for me, it got to me. I had to watch cartoons and stuff for a couple of weeks to kind of come down off of that.
See, I've only ever felt that way, that I need to decompress, when I've worked on like really, really serious cases for a long period of time. And I'm like, I need to go home and just I just need to see something or even read something the complete opposite. But I don't think I've reached that point with my books yet. Maybe if I write something different, I'll get there.
Right.
Was it a surprise though that you felt that way?
Yeah, I was very surprised because, like I said, I've written a serial killer book. I've written, revenge novels. I've written very, dark crime fiction. I've never felt that way. And then, like, this was unusual. It was like, it made me feel like these characters, I felt bad putting them through what I put them through. And I don't usually feel like that, but it really was something, like I said, I had to sort of walk away from and sort of reevaluate. But then after I was able to reevaluate, able to decompress, I went back and read the book again, and I'm really proud of it. I think, every book I feel like I'm doing what I do well as I can do it. And so I felt that way about All the Sinners. I felt that way about Razorblade. I felt that way about Blacktop, My Darkest Prayer. With King of Ashes, I really do feel like everything is sort of coalesced around the story that I'm trying to tell. Like, the things I feel like, I don't want to say excel at because I think it's egotistical, but the things I feel like I do well. Like, I think I'm pretty good with dialogue. I think I'm pretty good with setting and character. And it felt like in King of Ashes, all those things were all firing on all cylinders. And so I'm proud of the book. It is very dark, and I have had some concern about how people will respond to it, but I've seen early reviews and people seem to be responding to it very positively, which is good. The story is tragic, but the tragedy comes from the fact that the three siblings love each other so much, and they do. It's not a toxic or dysfunctional relationship. It's a family relationship. And that family relationship is very rooted in both their love for each other and the secrets they hold from each other. And so the tragedy doesn't work if they don't legitimately care about each other. There are moments in the book where they're just being siblings and they're, busting each other's chops, but also telling each other how much they love each other, how much they care about each other. And they not just say it, but they show it. And so when the tragedy comes, it feels so profound because you know that these characters do love each other. They do care about each other. They just have a difficult time communicating. And I think that's relatable, hopefully, to a lot of different people.
When you was writing King of Ashes, are you able to, I'm going to say, put aside the success that you've had with the other books? Are you able to completely ignore that? Or is it still like white noise in your head?
It's terrifying because, you feel like once you reach,
I wasn't expecting that.
Sometimes I feel like the dog who chased the car and caught it, and then what do you do? What's the next step? For me, I feel like my books, people connect with them in a way. I feel proud of them. I don't want to drop or have a dip in quality. I don't want to have people's expectations not be met. So I give everything I have to these books. So the success of the books is sort of, I wouldn't say a hindrance, but it's definitely something. It's like a shadow looking over my shoulder because, I want to make sure I write the best book I can. I want to do well for myself, for my readers, for my publisher, my agent. There's so many people I feel like are dependent on me. So like, I can't phone it in, and I never phone it in. I come from a very sort of blue collar background. So for me, somebody's going to plunk down, 28 quid, as you say over there or whatever for a book of mine. I want them to feel like they got their money's worth. I don't want them to feel like I was half stepping, and so I bring the heat. I try to anyway. And sometimes bringing the heat means stuff gets dark. Stuff is violent. Stuff is very emotional. But I never want to leave a book or finish a book feeling like, well, it was okay. I give it everything I got, and hopefully people will see that when they read it.
Yeah. Okay, so Sean, what came to you first with King of Ashes? Was it the characters, a specific scene, the overall premise, or something completely different?
It was a specific scene. So there's a scene in the book where, and this is not a spoiler, I'm not going to say which character it is, but there's a character being tortured. And he's being tortured in a dog kennel, right? And he's having these dogs they are just chewing up on his legs, man. And I saw... There's a movie which I have a very complicated relationship with called Pulp Fiction. I'm not going to get into that now, but I have a very complicated relationship with Pulp Fiction. And so there are things in Pulp Fiction I really love, and there are things in Pulp Fiction I really hate. And anyway, but there's a throwaway line at the end of Pulp Fiction where Marcellus Wallace says to one of his underlings, they're trying to get information about a character named Butch. And they're like, take the trainer down to the kennel and set the dogs on him, and we'll see what he knows and what he don't know. And that line has always sounded so dark and so esoteric to me. And so I just had this image of a guy out in a barn in the middle of nowhere getting dogs set on him. And I started thinking, like, why would he have those dogs at him? Who owns the dogs? Where does all that? And then so it sort of just grew from there. And I was able to actually incorporate that scene in the full finished copy of the book. But that's sort of where it came from. And then it just sort of mushroomed from there because I'm like, well, what would necessitate somebody having to torture somebody like that? And who are these characters? And so on and so forth. And then it just popped in my head, oh, he knows something about this family. And it just kind of rolled from there. And so the characters came out of sort of this idea of family and family dynamics. Like, I think for me, I have a brother and we're pretty close, but I do understand that in our family, we have been given certain roles, right? And sometimes you're given roles that you didn't ask for, but you're given it anyway. And so that kind of sort of melded with that image, like, what kind of family is this? Who are these people? And what roles have been given? And all these roles that they willingly accepted. And so it kind of just grew from there. So then the crime aspect sort of came after the sort of idea about the family dynamics.
Yeah, I always say when people ask, where did you get your inspiration from? I'm saying it starts with a scene, but then it's not necessarily the whole scene. It's the questions that follow on from the scene, because you are then asking the who, what, why, when. And then, whilst me, I'm walking around the house, I'm in the kitchen, I'm trying to answer those questions. I'm like, well, why has he said this? And who is he? And then that's what then brings on the rest of the story.
Yeah, definitely. That's for me too. Like, once I get the characters, what are they doing? What do they want? Why do they want it? And how far are they willing to go to get it? Those are the things I like to answer. If I can answer those questions, then I can start the book.
Yeah. Okay, so which character surprised you the most whilst writing?
Neveah, the sister. Because I wanted her to be strong. I really do work really hard to make really strong female characters. I don't want my female characters to be sidekicks or trophies or what have you. I want them to have agency, and so with Neveah, in my mind, when I first started writing about her, she felt kind of bitter, but she had a right to be bitter. Roman, who's the oldest brother, has gone on to Atlanta and living this wonderful life. Dante is the baby brother. He's irresponsible. He drinks and takes drugs and parties all the time. And she was the one holding the family business together. And so at first she felt very bitter. But then when I was writing her, I understood that A, she has a right to her bitterness, but also B, she's not bitter. She's sad, And once I understood that and I understood why she was sad, then it made her a much more complete character, a much more rounded character. In the book, she's in a very toxic relationship. And there's a scene in the book where she ends that relationship in a very public, very visceral way. And I'm going to tell you, I wrote that scene, but I was cheering her on the whole time. I was like, yes, tell that so-and-so off, and I liked it. And it showed her strength. It showed her determination and also her ability to not wallow in self-loathing and sort of pull herself out. And I was surprised, but I was pleasantly surprised by that.
I do like those moments when you're writing the scene, but you're then interacting the scene. You turn into those annoying people in the cinema who are like shouting at the film. I did it with Henley, and I was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "No, do it." And I'm like, "Yes," even though I'm writing it. But I love those moments. Sean, what's the most random fact you now know because of this book?
Most human cremated remains weigh between 3 and 10 pounds.
I don't even know why I'm pulling a face, right? Because I didn't know, maybe you was going to give me a fact about geography, but no, it's to do with cremation. And that shouldn't bother me. Is that all? He's watching me. I'm like, I'm holding, like, if I had pearls, I'd be clutching my pearls right now. Is that all? Was it 3 pounds?
Between 3 and 10 pounds. So anywhere from 3 to 10 pounds. Most on average. Now, have you ever, but that's and that's funny because that's the sum total of a human body after it's been immolated, which is so interesting to me. Now if someone's the larger, obviously, probably way more, but that's the average, which I just found fascinating when I was doing research on this.
I was going to tell you a story about when my Uncle Charlie got cremated. And this is how weird my brain is. So we're in the crematorium. And so we're in there. And what I couldn't get, because, the coffin disappears through the curtains. And I know it's about to go into the furnace. But I just couldn't understand why the place was so cold. I was like, this crematorium is freezing. And I couldn't understand it. Why it was? I was like, it should not be cold because clearly there's a fire. Oh God. So Sean, we'll pull ourselves together. Sean, right? Before we started recording, we was talking about having our fan base and readership. So for a lot of people now, you are their go-to author. So when they know you've got a new book out, they're out there pre-ordering, which is what you want, but they're out there pre-ordering, they're ready to go, and they're following you every move. Who is your go-to author? Who's the person you're going to hit that pre-order button for?
Oh man, I have three. One is Jordan Harper.
I knew he was going to say him.
I'll read his laundry list. I'll read his grocery list. I'll read his scribblings that he did on the train. The next one is Dennis Lane. I'll read anything Dennis Lane it will write. And I think the third one is Walter Mosley. Anytime Walter has a new book out, I don't even ask what the plot is. I just hit pre-order. I gotta have it.
How does it make you feel? I suppose, like, if you'd known back when you'd written maybe like My Darkest Prayer, even when you was writing your short stories and things, how do you feel knowing that you was going to become someone's go-to? How do you feel about that now?
It's daunting because, again, like I said,
Yeah.
I'm not a people pleaser, but like I said, again, I come from that blue collar background, honest day's work for honest wage. And so I wouldn't want to disappoint that person. I wouldn't want to disappoint anyone that reads my books, like, they always tell us don't read your reviews and stuff. And, we always do anyway. And, I try to read the negative reviews sometimes to see, is there a legitimate gripe? Is there something that I need to work on? Is there something I need to do? And sometimes there is something in there like, oh, well, yeah, maybe next time I'll work on that a little better. But, I never want to read one where somebody is like, oh, this book really disappointed me, or I didn't finish it, or whatever. And so for me, if I had known in the past, I think it would have been so daunting. I don't know if I would have continued writing, because it was like, I would have psyched myself out about it, so.
Yeah. It's a big weight to have on your shoulders, I suppose, isn't it? It's that
It really
weight of
is.
expectation.
It's like with King of Ashes. It's like you would say, somebody would say to me, I said it was dark. They was like, well, your last book was a serial killer book. Yeah, that was dark, but that was dark with a hint of optimism at the end. It's not a tragedy. All Sinners Bleed is a mystery, but it ends on an optimistic note, and Titus is probably the one objectively good character I've ever written. He's human. He has his faults. Anybody who's read the book will attest to his faults. He had no, like I had a lady tell me the book signing. She's like, I love Titus, but he had no business going to see his ex-girlfriend. And I know.
He really did have no business doing that. I remember reading it. I'm like, seriously, Titus, this is what you're doing. Okay. All right. Let me just turn the page.
But I did that to show that he's human. He's not perfect. But with the characters in King of Ashes, they're very much shades of gray. And so, again, it's a tragedy. I mean, that's not a spoiler. It's a dark story. And I think for me, acknowledging that and understanding that goes a long way to hopefully the readers understanding it and accepting it, we all love stories. We're all storytellers, and I love, like Shakespeare. I love Shakespeare. So I love, A Midsummer's Night Dream, but I also love, King Lear. And so I think you could have both in your oeuvre, if you will. So.
But you're talking about showing the flaws of your characters. It's like the characters are human, and you want them to come across as being real, and you want your readers to have a reaction to them, whether it's a visceral one or whether it's one where they just want to throw the book across the room. You do want them to have a reaction, so you do have to give them those flaws and those dreams, and also the failed dreams and all of those sort of things.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the flaws make people connect with the characters. I used to read. There used to be a series of books back in the day. There was these spy thrillers called the Mac Boleyn series, right? And Mac Boleyn was basically America's James Bond, but also kind of John Wayne. And he was tough. Women wanted him, men wanted to be him, and those books were good when I was a kid. But when you become an adult, those books can be kind of boring because. Who wants to read about a perfect guy that there's no stakes in a book like that because he's always going to win. I like books where, it's a little muddled. Are they going to win? And is everybody going to survive? I can't remember what book it was, but one time I read a book and the dust jacket said, it was like a fantasy novel, but it was like a great adventure that will, for those who survive. Right. And I love that sort of idea, like, oh, everybody's not going to make it. Not everybody's going to be at the award ceremony. Well, I got to read this and see what's happening.
It reminds me of Walking Dead. If you might see like memes of they've shown the original group in The Walking Dead, the original group of survivors, and then you get to the end, and literally, I think the only ones left is like Rick and May and Carol and Daryl, and that's it. And everyone else in that original group even his kid, even Carl's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
it's that
yeah,
kind of thing. It's like, who will make it?
yeah. And I think it allows readers and viewers to have stakes. I think stakes makes books exciting. You know, like
Mm,
with King, like I'll say this because of my most recent books. With All the Sinners Bleed, I think people know Titus is the lead character. He's probably going to make it, but everybody else is on the chopping block, including people he cares about, including people he loves.
yeah.
And so, I really worked hard to create that sense of anybody can get it. And I tried to do that with King of Ashes, and it even in King of Ashes, I hope it ups the ante because these are siblings. So the fact that they're on the chopping block makes it even more nerve wracking, more stakes involved. And I think as a thriller writer, as a crime writer, you have to do that unless you're writing a cozy, I mean, a cozy. Everybody can
Yeah.
just at the end of the book have a cosmopolitan or aperitif and call it a day.
Aperitif. I was going to say a cup of tea and a cream cake, but no, an aperitif.
Same difference.
Same thing. Sean, you probably answered this question already, though. But was King of Ashes harder or easier to write than All the Sinners Bleed, and why?
It started out being easier, but by the time I got to the middle and I knew what some of the twists and some of the revelations were going to be, it got real hard. I would say the two hardest books that I've ever written are King of Ashes and Razorblade Tears, because
Really,
not everybody,
Razorblade.
not everybody makes it to the award ceremony of both of those books, and it was difficult. And I think with characters in Blacktop Wasteland, how can I put this? Those characters are in the life. You know what I'm saying? Like in America, sometimes we use the life as a euphemism for criminal underworld. And so
Yeah, same
the
here.
characters
They're
in the life they kind of know the risk that they're taking. With Razorblade, those two characters used to be in the life, Buddy Lee and Ike, but they've gotten out, they've escaped. And so me putting them back in it was difficult because, it's almost like an addict. They fall off the wagon in that book, so to speak. But Ike has a line in there that he didn't want to start on a mission of revenge, not because he was afraid to spill blood, but because he was afraid he couldn't stop. And so it was sort of, for me, hard to put them in that predicament. With King of Ashes, these are not characters that are criminals. These are regular, Roma's a financial advisor. His family runs a crematory. They're regular people. And so for me to insert them into this world, it felt a little hard. It felt a little difficult. I was, and it made it, when I got to the halfway point, I realized this is really dangerous. Like, these people are in real danger. This isn't, fake gangsters and wannabe tough guys. This is real, serious stuff. People gonna die. And it made me feel like, wow, these characters are in a very precarious situation. And so, but then I had to keep writing it in a way that was truthful and honest and raw, because if you do anything less than that, then you're doing a disservice to the characters and to the readers. So yeah, both of those are probably my most difficult books. I liked writing All the Sinners Bleed because at my heart, I'm a mystery junkie. I love writing mysteries. I love mysteries. I love locker room mysteries. I had the opportunity to write a short story for Goldboro's book, their anniversary anthology, which is a really fun locker room mystery to write. So with Titus, my favorite, I had fun. It sounds terrible because it's a book about serial killers, but I had fun when Titus figured it out. Like when he has that sort of Perot moment where he figures it all out. That was exciting to me. Like when he put the clues together and everything locked into place, I was like, yeah, that's fun. There's not a lot of fun parts in Razorblade. Even when the truth comes to light, it's very painful. So yeah, both of Razorblade and also I think both of these books deal with grief in a different way. So that was kind of difficult. So yeah, they were way harder to write than All the Sinners. All the Sinners was kind of fun, especially the last 20 pages. It was like, yeah, let's mess some stuff up.
But when we were talking before we started recording, you was asking me what I was up to, and I was explaining to you how it's taken me all day just to write like 10 words. And I think it's because with what I'm working on now, because it's not a Henley book, and the characters, like you say, the character I was writing in this scene, she's not in that life. And to me, I felt like I was putting her at risk, and I'm exposing her. And I didn't feel comfortable doing that because she's not about that life. Whereas Henley,
Exactly.
that is her life in a sense, because she works on the other side, but that is her life. So I was like, yeah,
Exactly.
I felt like I'm showing you, I'm showing everyone all of her business, and I'm like, she doesn't need to know that about her.
Exactly. No, I feel like that. There's a scene early on in King of Ashes. It's not a spoiler, where Roman meets the gangsters that Dante owes the money to, and Dante is trying to explain to him that these are very dangerous people. They're no joke, and Roman has a little bit of hubris because he's telling himself it's just another negotiation. I do this all day, every day. I'm a financial advisor. I know how to talk to these people. And something happens during that meeting that makes him realize, oh no, these are real gangsters. I deal with wannabe rap stars and all that down in the no, these are the real deal. These are wolves, and I'm in the den with wolves. And it's a moment where he's in real danger, and something happens. He gets hurt. They don't get out of that unscathed. And so
I'm
for
gonna ask
me, to your
you.
point, yeah, I had that same feeling that you had.
I'm not gonna ask you to say what happens, but you know what it reminds me of. You seen Ozark
Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah, yeah,
Jason
yeah,
Bateman? You
yeah.
know the very first episode of Ozark when they're doing the
Hmm.
negotiations, and then he
Yeah.
realizes, oh, these are the people we're dealing with, because your friend's now in a vat of acid. Sorry if you've never seen it, but that's
Oh,
what
I've seen
happens.
it. And the first episode of Ozark, that first scene when Asai Morales character shows up, and you see
Yeah.
it on Jason, and Jason Bateman is such a good actor. You see it on his face. It was sort of, you understand that it was an abstract thing. Oh, we're cleaning money for criminals. It's not a bit. No, now they're here. Now they're here, and you may not
Hmm.
go home tonight. And so Roman has a scene like that, a moment in
Yeah.
that where he does, and he realizes, these are not people to play with, and so I'm not gonna say what happens, but he definitely looks in the mirror the next day and realizes that he's not in Kansas anymore.
Those are always great. Those are great moments to write, though. It's when your
Mhm.
character realizes, oh, this is what this game's about. Okay,
Exactly.
all right. Well,
Exactly.
what am I going to do now? Because the thing is,
Exactly.
they can't run. They can't, because you have no
Mm-mm.
book, so they can't run.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Definitely.
Sean, without giving away any spoilers, did the book end the way you originally planned, or did it surprise you?
It did end the way I originally planned
Sean's
because a lot of this book takes its influence from The Godfather as a spiritual influence, not a beat for beat influence. Because I'm
yeah,
fascinated not so much with The Godfather and the Mafia, but I'm fascinated with Michael Corleone. I'm fascinated with a character who's smart, who's intelligent, who finds out that he's ruthless, and I'm fascinated with the idea of what happens when you find out you have a special skill at something that's terrible, right? At being a criminal, And so I definitely had an idea of how I wanted the book to end because I wanted to pay, and people who have read the book by the time this comes out, I wanted to pay a slight homage to The Godfather. So there's something that happens at the end, but it didn't surprise me. I think what surprised me was my reaction to it. Like I already had the plot ending in my head. I knew how it was going to go, but then when I was writing it, when I was actually writing the sort of final, denouement, I cried. It was so heavy. It was
you
so
did.
hard. It was, yeah, I did. It was so heavy and so painful for the characters, and their pain felt palatable. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm putting these people through this. This is terrible. And it was funny because, like I said before, in a lot of my books, you have a physical confrontation at the end of the book that sort of solves everything. That doesn't really happen. The confrontation at the end
Mm,
of the book is very emotional. And like in real life, it doesn't end. You just stop talking. You know what I'm saying? And so for these characters, there's
yeah.
no conclusion really. They just stop talking to each other and go their separate ways. And that was very sort of emotionally draining in a good way as a creator. So
I don't think I've ever cried. I mean, I've hit the red wine afterwards, but I don't think I've cried.
yeah, no, I cried. I cried. And I mean not boohoo, but it got in
Oh,
my I was tearing up. I was tearing up. Yeah.
yeah. That I think that says something though. That if you can get that emotional about the characters and the story you've written, imagine how your readers are going to feel.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Because reader reactions are great. When they come back now, I
Oh
can't
yeah.
believe they did this. I can't believe they did that. And Oh, I thought I was gonna hate
I don't
everyone in
know.
Razorblade Tears, but I love them.
I don't know if we can curse on here, but I got to tell you a comment that
We can
a person on
curse. We
Instagram,
can curse.
a person on Instagram, I don't know her real name, but I think her name on Instagram is Brit's Books or Brit and Books. Lovely young lady.
I
She
know her.
she gave a review of King of Ashes, and she said, and this is my favorite review of anything I've ever written so far. She said, "Y'all, the last 50 pages of this book, my heart was in my ass. I didn't know what was going to happen." So that's my favorite review of all time.
Oh my God. I love that. I love that. So, Sean, did you ever hit the wall when writing King of Ashes, and how did you get past it?
Oh yeah. I think when I hit that halfway point, I had certain concerns about being able to create and maintain a tone that was both suspenseful but also emotional. And I ended up talking to a friend of mine. I ended up talking to Jordan Harper. We're friends. I mean, I admire him as a writer, but we're
Yeah.
also friends. And he gave me a good piece of advice. He said, it doesn't have to be as good as anything else you've ever written. It just got to be good. So I got through that idea of like,
Yeah.
oh, is this going to be as good as All the Sinners? Is this as good as Razorblade? Is it better? Where am I at on the scale? You don't have to worry about it. It's just this got to be good within this moment, this specific moment that you're in. So,
When I've spoken to authors on this podcast, both on, I say the usual one, the conversation on coffee break, I don't think anyone's ever gone into the next book they're writing thinking, yeah, it's all going to be a breeze. It doesn't matter how successful they've been with their earlier books. It's always, oh my God, can I do this again? And then you just have to tell yourself, you just need to write this book. You just need to write this story, and just work through that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's true. I think every book is the book that you're writing now, and that's the book that's the most important one.
Yeah. Sean, what are you working on next? I know already. But the listeners don't know.
I'm currently working on an adaptation of Luke Cage for Marvel. In the middle of that right now. But my next crime novel, I have two ideas. I actually just had a meeting with my editor about it. So I'll give you the Cliff Notes version or elevator pitch of both ideas, because I haven't picked which one it is yet. So one idea is tentatively titled Bound Not. One idea is tentatively titled Bound Not by Blood. It's about two best friends. One's an artist. He makes stained glass windows. The other one's a hitman. They've been best friends since they were kids. And at the beginning of the book, they're going on their annual fishing trip, and they get a call from a young lady they knew in the past that her son is missing and she needs to find him because she needs him for a medical procedure to save her life. And she also tells them, oh, and by the way, one of you guys might be the dad. So they go on a road trip to find this kid, but they also sort of are analyzing and trying to understand their friendship, and maybe the fact that their friendship is coming to an end. And so that's one book idea. The other one is called tentatively titled Highway Full of Night. And it's about a young man. It's set in the late 80s, early 90s. And it's about a young man in Virginia who's a getaway driver who may be or maybe not related to another getaway driver. And he has to get out of Virginia. And so he has a friend who's going to LA to be a musician. And so the friend tells him, hey, ride along with me, keep my van running, and you can come to LA with me. And when he gets to LA, he finds out that, there's a whole big wide world that he never knew about, and he meets these artists, and he meets an actress or an aspiring actress, but he also meets some gangsters, and he meets a young lady who is with those gangsters. So he's torn between these two young ladies. He's torn between two types of life that he can have. And so we kind of see how he navigates that. And that's the two ideas that I have. I haven't decided which one I'm going to write first, but I know I'm going to eventually, hopefully, write both of them. So,
Sean, right? You may have heard me.
Yeah.
Listeners will have heard me. I may have gasped because when you said he may or may not be related to a getaway driver, and I was like, oh, I
know. Yeah. So that I don't want to say any more about it, but that's that's maybe something on the horizon.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. You haven't even written a word yet. But Sean, have you ever resisted a temptation? Because good thing is you write standalones, right?
Yeah.
Have you fought against the request to go back to return to I was going to say clients.
You know what's
not
funny?
clients, to
I'll
return
say
to
this.
characters.
I'll say this as we wrap things up. I was very adamant when I first started writing. I didn't want to write series. I wanted to write standalones. I wanted to write books that were just snapshots of a character's life. And I'm gonna tell you, every couple of days, I get an email from somebody or a message from somebody. It's like, please bring Titus back. What's Titus doing? We want to see Titus. We want to have another adventure with Titus. And I kind of resisted and resisted and resisted. And then I was going back, and we all have these things. I was going back through some old files, ideas. I saw an idea that was not a Titus idea, but I kind of thought, could I reconfigure this to make it a Titus book? And how would I bring Titus back? And what would it look like? And I started thinking, well, at the end, spoiler alert, he's not, I don't want to spoil things, but there's a certain thing that happens at the end of All Sins Bleed. I'm like, how would I bring it back? What would be the circumstances? Like, And I started thinking about Red Dragon, right? And I started thinking about Will Graham and how Will Graham comes back into the fold. So, maybe there'll be a Titus book in the future. We get to catch up.
When I finished All the Sinners Bleed, I closed the last page, and it just felt like he will come back. I said, whether or not Sean wants to bring him back, it's a different story. But I just feel like this is a character. He will come back, and this is the character people will ask for.
Yeah, people have asked for him, so I don't know. I like to catch up with him. Maybe he's getting some sleep finally, because all through the running joke, all the sinners bleed is he never gets any sleep because he tries not to dream. So
yeah, oh god, you know what's funny? I was talking. There's another author, Tarakash Kanani, who wrote The Midnight King, and we were talking about we were playing video games and also watching characters, and just thinking, has this person slept yet? Have they eaten? It's like the things you think about. It's like, because you didn't care. I'm like, you need to eat. You need to sleep. Sean, what message or feeling? What message or feeling do you hope readers take away from King of Ashes?
I hope people take the feeling away that, it's not enough to love your family, to love your siblings. You've got to learn how to communicate. You've got to learn how to open yourself up to the people that share the wound with you,
Yeah. Actually, I'm not going to end it just yet, because I need to ask you this, because you posted something on, I think it was yesterday, about the Netflix adaptation, right? Of All the Sinners Bleed. How does that feel, knowing that this book you wrote, Titus, is going to be on screens?
Scary, exciting, and just so honored. So honored.
Yeah. Are you involved? Are you writing it? Or you just letting it go?
I'm not writing it. I'm letting it go, but I have an executive producer credit, which all that means is I get to look at scripts and like, that's good.
And finally, Sean, to end our coffee break, which book, film, show, or video game do you recommend?
Oh gosh. Book. She Rides Shotgun by Jordan Harper. Not enough people have read it. Video game. I'm old school. I love LA Noire. I just love that game. I've played it through a bunch of times. Movie, Hella High Water. Hella High Water is one of my favorite movies of all time. Both Chris Pine and Ben Foster and Chris Pine were robbed with not getting Oscar nominations for that movie. It's an amazing modern American Western with one of the most tense standoffs at the end I've ever seen.
Sean,
and I just love that movie.
I watched that film. When did I watch it? A couple of years ago. And it was one of these ones, it kind of felt like it flew under the radar. Because I felt like I saw it being advertised and it disappeared. And then I watched it. Was it last? It might have been last year I watched it. And I was like, oh my God. Even you talk about that standoff scene, that is the edge of your seat. Yeah. That's a good
Anybody who's seen it, when he says, I ain't never killed nobody in my whole life. But if you want me to start with you, old man, why don't you see if you can reach that boot before I blow you off this roof, off this porch? It's so good. I know the whole speech. I know the whole scene. I got it memorized. I love it. I can't do it now because I got to run. But This was so
I
much
know.
fun. Oh, I can't. I'm hoping.
Sean,
I'm hoping I'm coming. I hope I'm coming back to the UK this fall. And we got to get together. We got to have
we will.
our annual pub drink. I one of my favorite memories was hanging out with you and all the folks in Harrogate a couple years ago. I had a blast. So
Yeah. We had a great
I
time.
know
No, we will
we
do that.
did.
We
We
will
did.
catch up. We will have
Yes.
drinks. SA Cosby, thank you for joining me for the coffee break.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it for this coffee break. Thank you so much for joining me. Starting from season 4, we'll be bringing you regular coffee breaks, 20-minute episodes, perfect for a quick chat with your favourite authors about their latest books. And here's the fun part. Next season, we're answering your questions. If there's something you've always wanted to ask an author, send it in. Email your question to theconversation@nadinematteson.com, and we might just answer it in a future episode with a special shout out to you, of course. Until next time, keep reading, keep listening, and I'll see you soon for another coffee break. Oh, and before I forget, don't forget, subscribe, follow, like, review, and share this episode with your friends. Your support keeps the podcast growing, and if you head down to the show notes, you can also support the podcast by buying us a cup of coffee. The links are in the show notes.